Sounds
Welcome
good,
to the
man.
Exchange Artist Workshop Series. We're super excited to be bringing this podcast series to the public here and diving in deep with the artists, figuring out what exactly makes them tick, how they view their craft, what led them to be where they are now, and just go a little bit deeper than we're used to going on Twitter. Joined today by Douglas, one of my favorite fellow photographers. Super honored just to have you here today, man, and just learn a little bit more about you.
Thank you, man. It's awesome to be here. Very honored. Appreciate you. And it was so awesome to get to link with you in real life in Lisbon. So I'm excited to chop it up in this space, man.
It's crazy that we all have legs, right? It's like
I was convinced we were all AI for a second, so it's nice to
know. Especially with the AI tweeting now, you never know.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was. It's really amazing to just kind of finally link these faces, and especially after now, I think I've seen you in the space for over a year now, and just kind of watching all these trajectories. But I want to go right back to the very beginning and just ask, where did it first start with you being a photographer? You know, how did that love spark?
Yeah, so to be honest, visual and photography is somewhat of a new medium for me in the past, 2.5 years or so. I was a musician for the longest time, and that was my main creative outlet. And I just kind of got really, really burnt out and kind of lost my passion for it. And I've always kind of been a visual artist within my musical projects, whether that was, gig posters, album designs, or whatever, visuals for music videos. So like I've always kind of dabbled in it. And once I pretty much like gave up uh, music, I wanted something, to kind of get me out of the house because I was, in the studio a lot and this and that. And I really wanted to just roam and like have this like instantaneous, form of art as well as just like that, like, how it is like when you pick up a new creative medium, it's like free. Like I felt like when I was playing music, I was just sticking to all these rules, doing the same thing over and over again. So to like learn something like brand new, have no rules, and just like go for it was like so liberating to me. So yeah, I really like took my creative, what's the word I'm really put steam in my engine in terms of like my creative venture. So it was a really fun pivot.
That's really cool, man. I kind of similar story here. I feel like I accidentally fell in love with photography, right? It's like, oh wow, there's this whole new way I can release and express myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, it's quite fun, and there's so many different elements of it. There's capturing a moment or creating a moment, but at the end of the day, I love being able to like make art within my daily life. Anywhere I go, I could just snap something, and it's not like when I was making music, I had to like sacrifice like a whole weekend, sit in the studio, and is this a lonely life unless so like I really liked being able to merge creating art in my daily life, and that's kind of part of the art for me is really just meshing meshing that balance.
That's really cool. I'm curious. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and kind of draw some parallels. Do you find that your normally I ask about like traditional art background, but do you feel like your background as a musician has kind of helped hone that craft of photography and how you view yourself as an artist?
Yeah, well, I think it's been just years of a creative eye and an approach, and something I learned very quickly as a musician was I wasn't going to make it as a musician, and I really wasn't a musician. I learned I was an artist. I wanted to do things my way, and even same with photography. I wanted to do things my way. I guess I'm stubborn in that sense, but then it's not art to me. Like so so yeah, I think like my whole creative journey has led me to this season. You know what I mean? And who knows, in 2 years, like I might not do anything with photos or anything like that. So it's all one body of work, but it's like everything has like cultivated and built me to this creative being that I am now, and this current variation is through a camera.
It's really interesting to think of things that way, like not so focused in on necessarily the tool that you're using to portray, whether it be a concept or a feeling or whatever that you're trying to get across through your art. So I think that's pretty freeing to view a camera as a tool.
Yes, absolutely. It's you know, it's the ultimate tool. Really, I say it is it's really just like a printer to my mind. Like my eye sees something, and then I just use this tool to capture what my eye sees. You know what I mean? Or and so that I have these ideas in my head, and then I create the moment. That's you know, there's different photographers, and in my lane, I'm creating moments rather than capturing moments. So I try to create these, and then I just capture it with the camera and print it out, kind of thing.
What so many people know you for is these just iconic hoop series, right? And I'm curious on not just the inspiration behind where that comes from, but the inspiration behind like what drives you as an artist creatively.
Yeah, so 100%. So I guess like when it all comes down to it, it's kind of like exploring this feeling of like, I always say it like the what the fuck feeling, because it's like I like taking a subject matter that really like everybody has like a preconceived idea of what that is, right? And then like flipping it on its head. So it's like if someone looks at my pieces and it's like, oh, like that's sand dunes, mountains, basketball. What the fuck? Like that feeling right there is what I love, and I love that just like that madness that's so surreal to me. You know what I mean? And I just happen to find that feeling with a basketball hoop because I mean at the end of the day I like basketball for sure, but I'm also exploring just the simplicity of an orange circle and just like honing in on one thing over and over and over again and how that could completely unlock my creativity and like what can I do next. It's actually a personal challenge to me at this point. It's like how much more can I take this orange circle into places it's never been. So so that's really the influence of it, and it's also it's a fun prop to play with. I could put in my suitcase and travel with it, so it kind of makes some stuff interesting. It's kind of a cheat code in a sense, but also it's true to myself. It really is a reflection of me because if I was making art when I'm 6 years old, I'd be making art out of Star Wars action figures. You know what I mean? So it's like in this current, I love basketball. I think it's so like cool, brings people together, and I think it's really artistic, and like it hasn't really been painted in artistic light that much. So it's just like once again with the camera, it's like a snapshot, a printer of what I see. I see it as this beautiful artistic thing, and I want to share that.
It's really cool. I feel like you've done a really good job of kind of allowing collectors to have a little piece of that as well. You're always experimenting with whether it be AR filters or different collaboration like opportunities, and I find that really interesting because you kind of get to bring that little slice of your mindset to the person who is now interacting with it in a whole new way, like similar to how you do when you travel with the hoop.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at the core of it, that's what's just so special to me about the NFT space is the communities, the collaborations, the connections. I mean, more than ever, I felt that just in Lisbon and FTNYC and everything. Just like being able to bond. Like I was like blown away that like my art took me to Lisbon inside this room with all these beautiful minds. And when you water it down, like this crazy dude was throwing a basketball rim in the air, but in reality, it's like my art took me here, and it blows my mind. You know what I mean? So yeah. To answer your question, just like the community collaboration and just the human connections is what truly makes this space special.
Yeah, I think that the technology gets to open up so many cool doors for that too. I've really not seen too many other people offer, not only do you have just an AR filter of this hoop, but then you can actually angle it to fit exactly how you want in the frame. And I think that's so interesting. And I really enjoy how you explore the technology. How did you kind of come about that like enjoyment of utilizing this tech?
Yeah, so yeah, actually, there's this dude in the space named Time Thief, and he does like a lot of like filters on people's faces, so like you don't get doxxed or whatever. And he like hit me up, and he's like, "Hey man, like, what if we did like a Snapchat like AR filter?" And I was like, "Oh, whoa, that's cool." So he kind of like planted that in my brain a little bit, and then like seeing what was possible, and then we collaborated on this like Snapchat filter thing. That was like version one, and then while that was like being built, like I pretty much like conceived this idea of community hoops where we could collaborate and like um people can make art as I would make art essentially. And I think that's like one of the coolest things is like that experience, right? It's like I guess like anybody could be like, oh, anybody could take a photograph. Well, like, well, here you go, because here's everything I can do, like make it look like me or whatever. So it's kind of like a cool way to like make even collectors like a part of like my art process, which is pretty cool, as well as like anyone can make art wherever they go, which is kind of like a big thing of mine. But yeah, once we put out this version one, it was cool, and then I was like, all right, like I got to try to make my own, and I did it with my own photography and just really got into it. And yeah, so I'm really into to trying to merge all the tech that this space has to offer as well as art. I mean, that's what kind of the blend, you know. So I'm kind of an old head here, boomer alert, at like my mid 30s doing photography and stuff, when all these other kids are just like in Blender creating the craziest worlds in VR and stuff. So it's like I got to keep up with these kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that people forget that you can take people places with photography. It doesn't have to be just that image that you see right now. And I think that's really what dictates the difference between a photographer and an artist. Especially with the access to cameras nowadays. So I think that's really cool. And even giving someone the tool of this hoop, right? It's like they might have this idea, but then they have to figure out, how do I execute this? I can see it in my brain. And that also kind of leads into that, like, oh, photography is easy narrative, right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
now you have the tools. Go see how easy it
Yeah,
is.
go see how easy it is. There's so many things that can go wrong. The thing with photography that I think that is so just like not talked about really is how many things have to go right for us to get this shot. A million things have to go right. Like one thing could go wrong and it's ruined. And it's like I wish every day I could just draw. I wish I could just erase that little thing. I wish, you know what I mean? Instead of like, I have to light this on fire, almost kill myself to get this shot. Instead, like, oh, just draw a little flame here. You know what I mean? And I love it. I love, but that's the thrill to me. That's the art. To be honest with you, man, it's like the art of creation. Like is the art, and the camera, the final image is just the snap, the moment in time. But the process is the art.
Absolutely. I want to go to your entrance into Web3 and to releasing your art as NFTs. How did that come about, and when did that spark happen to join this community?
Yeah, for sure. So I was onboarded through my friend John Lay, and he was like, "Oh, check out this space." We did some mints, and he wanted to just kind of show me what was up with it. I was like, "Whoa, this is interesting! Like crazy, you know, possibilities with what can be done." I obviously only heard about you know more like Ponzi schemes and rugs kind of stuff before I entered the Solana space. So I didn't know what to think. It wasn't like I was like closed minded. I was just like, wait, like there's actually art on here. Like I only thought of it as like Bored Ape Yacht Club and stuff like that. And not to diminish that. Like now I understand like the power of communities and stuff. But like I was just like, I mean, I'll check it out. But like so then I jumped on and just hustled on Twitter for freaking months, and I finally got like 60 followers, and then I was like, all right, man, I gotta like release one of these NFTs. Let's just see what happens. And I dropped my first NFT with 60 followers about a week before Christmas, and it sold, and I was just blown away. And I quit my job 2 weeks later, or gave my 2 weeks notice, and then went full force on NFTs ever since. Been time of my life, best year of my life for sure.
That's awesome, man. I remember seeing you enter the space because I was just starting to think about releasing my own art at that time as well. I think right around the same time, I think we released like late December time. And it was when A2K finally convinced me that I had to come over here and release my artwork. But the photography scene was so small, and I think it was so cool to have people like yourself be a beacon of what photography can be. Right? It doesn't have to just be a very simplistic picture. Not that there's anything wrong with landscape or any other medium, but I think that having such a strong abstract photography series come right off the gate and having you champion that was really powerful. And now, like, looking like a year later, seeing where the photography community is, like how does that make you feel, right? How does it make you feel seeing how big this has already gotten, and also how new it still is?
Well, Thank you for those kind words, man. That's awesome to hear. Um, it's been cool, man. Like it was, it was scary at first because I didn't have really anything to like reference. You know what I mean? I was just like going for it. So it was first of its kind, I guess, at that time, and it really means a lot. Like even hearing in person, just people, like yo, like, dude, thank you. Like, you kind of taught me how to like form a collection or like how to strategize in on Solana and Web3, and it's like really cool to hear. And it's cool. It's cool that I got to influence some people, but like I'm blown away at some of the stuff that's coming out now, and I'm so hyped that the photography scene is like emerging. I keep waiting photography season, baby. Let's go. But it's amazing. I can't wait for more. And that's the thing is like you know the space is like poured gasoline on a lot of our like you know not only creativity but like just having like an outlet for like people who genuinely care, and like want us to succeed and points to the right people. Like it's amazing. So I'm very hyped on the future of photography. I think you know there's only it's only up from here.
I think that's the beautiful part about starting at the bottom. You get to really climb up that ladder altogether versus, if you see it on certain chains, and I saw this happen on ETH where photography blew up and it almost became easy to sell your work. And
Wow.
then when that went away, inevitably, when that spotlight went away, so many photographers were left with, oh my God, like, it's my art bad? But here we're really kind of from the ground up, all leveling up, all building, which I think makes a really cool bond between the community, which I find to be so important. You spoke a little bit about like all of the new talent coming into Solana. I'm curious on what 3 tips you would give to photographers who are curious about releasing NFTs.
Yeah, that's a great question. Number one, I would definitely say, come in and cement yourself a little bit. Like try to like make some connections, go into spaces, post your work for a couple weeks before. Don't just post your work on a marketplace like Exchange and just expect it to sell. If it doesn't sell, then you dip. Like that's just not really how it works. You have to remember in the back of your mind that this space is about connections. So if you come in genuine, and just try to make friends. Like I met the coolest people in the world here. So just like make some friends and then like the art will sell. So get some support behind you. Um and that's the biggest one. Definitely what else I'd give is you know I'd probably recommend starting with a one of one rather than starting with editions. And I know editions really live in the photography world, but it's always about. I always ask myself in the back of my mind, like, where's the value, right? It's like we are like, let's be real, like people are in this space to obviously connections, but also long term investments make hopefully money off of our work, and that's awesome. But if you start off with like 1,000 editions at point one or whatever, like that's what's the advantage there for the collector? Someone who's really taking a risk on you, especially since you're just starting out. So I'd really want to come in and give your good work to at a deal, if that makes sense, to a collector, and then they'll become your biggest fan. And then later down the road, like you'll make it back on the royalties, but it'll be a lot easier if you kind of come in with that mentality of everybody needs to win, you know. So I think that's some solid advice that if people should take to heart. And then let's see, you said a third one, right? Definitely, just like learn, like, just like don't come in thinking like your art's the best or anything like that. It'll carry you to success. Like you got to really like, there's trends, there's metas in this space. Like you need to really like be involved and ride that wave and be genuine because, if you're a real person, people want to support you.
I think that's great tips and advice there. I think that so many people come in with the Instagram mentality, right? It's like I get the most likes, I win, and
Yeah.
that's just not the case here, right? I'm amazed all the time at artists with a very small following who will sell higher than artists that have 20, 30,000 followers, and it really goes to show just the power of being involved in the community, which I think you and so many others do just such a great job of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Yeah, just, being involved. To be honest, like I want to get more involved. Like I say, like one of my weaknesses is like Discord and the communities. Like I see the power of these PFP projects, and I haven't necessarily been able to leverage that tool. And I've heard a lot of other people who have entered the space who have bought into these communities and had such an awesome head start because they have just like a force around them. Like if you're an illustrator, like if you get into these PFP communities and you do like derivs of their work, like that's such an awesome way to get eyes on your work and get like a fan base immediately behind you. So that's an advantage. That's like an advantage to illustration. Like photography doesn't have that advantage, but that's just like another awesome tip is like an easy way to get involved into these communities.
Yeah, I think that people, especially when you first come in, you look at these communities and you're like, what, why? Like, why are you buying this pixelated monkey, or why are you
Yeah.
buying this and that? But you almost get like a built-in audience, and not necessarily that they're all going to listen to you, but you have that little kind of in to the crowd, like, hey, this is my cousin, come on in, he's
Yeah.
a good guy. And then you kind of
Yeah.
get that open door to pitch what you're doing. So I definitely agree with that.
Absolutely.
Let's go back to you, man. Like when you make these pieces, right? You spend the time in the studio or out in the wild making these pieces. We get to release time. What does that look like, right? How do you start to view releasing your art and making sure that that release is a success?
Yeah, that's probably the hardest part of this is timing the market. Making sure there's some hype, leveraging that. I guess I have the luxury to experiment a lot. So, even now you said if I'm one of the first photographers out of the gate, like all of it, I was making up as I go. So I'm still kind of doing that. And there's so many tools at my disposal. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll try it this time. Maybe I'll try it this time. So in terms of like, ramping up to release, there's different strategies. Sometimes I optimize the art for the release. Like, like for example, like I did like a Cloud 9 series, which was, nine, unique one of ones at 9 soul. I marketed it for 9 days. It came out at like I just played into the nine stuff and just stuff like that. Just playing with it. It's just like a toolbox. So, but yeah, man. In terms to like to ensure a successful release is maybe be real with yourself of like where you are of like what you can leverage for supply and demand and see what you can do there and um, timing is everything though. Don't be afraid to like, hit pause, if in the crypto world, if it goes nuclear overnight, you're like, all right, like I gotta postpone this, or if all systems go, like just go for it. You know what I mean? So I hope that answers your question because really the answer is there's no way to ensure a successful launch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a small takeaway from that is just like kind of making sure that you really fully back what you are doing, right? It's like that makes it so
as
much
long
easier.
Yeah, as long as you have, art that you're really confident in and a community behind you, people that will support no matter what, it'll be successful. So there are a lot of variables that you have to account for, but that's getting easier every day. Well, till recently, but almost every day.
You talk about community, and I think that everyone does varying degrees of interacting and building their own community up. I'm curious on how you kind of go about that, how you start to build a community.
Yeah, so in the beginning, I was really just like engaging with art that I genuinely liked, and I'm just like, yo, man, this is awesome, and just kind of like from there, like those people would like it or whatever, and I could start seeing other people, like the algorithm just kind of start doing its thing. And like I said, like I jumped on Twitter, like I never been on Twitter really before this, so like I had to like grind to get to 60 followers or whatever. But like then I would hop in spaces based off these people I'd follow, and then I just kind of like started really quickly picking up, uh, like trends of like what spaces were what people were doing this, and then once you kind of get the lay of the land for like one or two people, and then it's like, oh, okay, like this is awesome. Oh, this is where the art is. This is so there's a couple spaces and a couple like people that have like really resonated in the space, and they've introduced me to cool people. We've met up in real life, like collaborated. So it's really, I always say it's like the coolest dive bar I've ever been to, where it's like you can just pop in and be like, "What's up, man? Like, we all make art, awesome." You know what I mean? So it's really warm and welcoming that way.
I think it's great that you say that because I feel like coming in, people can assume that it's a very like closed off circle or like, it's like a lunch table in high school. But in reality, it's all still so new. Like these people who you think might have these very close connections have only known each other for a couple of months in reality. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to like let newcomers know that, it's like make yourself a seat. It's an open table.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you'll be like blown away at how like easy it is to connect. And I was like super nervous at first trying to connect with like you don't know who's behind these PFPs. Like obviously now like people are more doxxed and stuff, but like you could be talking to like a billionaire for all you know, or you know what I mean? But that's kind of cool though. Like you like what other space can you just like jump in and like, talk to? Who knows who you're talking to? But as long as you come in genuine and like actually are like just like a chill person instead of like buy my art, buy my art, buy my art, like everything will be all right.
And no one wants to be sold something that someone's trying to sell them, right? I think that's
Exactly.
it might be the definition of marketing.
Yes. That's it, man. 100%.
Speaking of marketing, I'm curious, and we kind of touched on this briefly, but like, how do you view marketing, not only your art, but also your brand?
Yeah, I think marketing is unfortunate, not even unfortunate, just the way the world is it's as equal as the art. I think that especially like in this space, you need to do a great job of communicating, value and when and where it's available. Marketing is key. So there's different tons of different approaches to that, like even optimizing a narrative around your art with the marketing as well. But basically, you're on Twitter. You, I mean, it's it's a it's a prayer if someone sees your tweet. You know what I mean? So you got to do everything you can to make sure people are aware while they're spending analyzing your tweet for 0.1 second if they're going to read it or look at it. So it's a big part of it, no question about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you do a really great job too of making these infographics, if you would, right? That kind of do a good job at not only relaying the information, but doing so in a way that's cohesive, right? Like whether it be like the cloud series, pull in elements of the color palettes or the sky or whatever. So I'm just curious on how you kind of think about honing that eye for design.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, I try to brand it all in the same like cohesive. I want something really about my art or even my posts is like I want everybody to just know immediately it's me and like no question about it. So I think that's just really important in everything. Like the brands that I resonate with all have a brand narrative and a look and feel, and I really want that with my art and my presentation and me as being an individual brand. So and that's like I was saying, where like even before photography, like that is what like that visual, that artistic world is stuff that I've done my whole life. So it's like that is still part of my creative evolution. And so blending all that with photography and my art, I think it's really important. I really recommend any artist to have kind of like um, a very cohesive narrative to their brand. I feel like those are the ones who are the most successful is artists that you can look immediately and know who they are. They don't jump from this to that a lot. Like nothing wrong with experimenting by any stretch, but it's like you kind of you have to make sure there's like a line that can be followed with your audience. And and investors and collectors they want to know what they're buying into. So that's another thing to really keep in mind.
Yeah, I remember I had this active thinking moment. I can't remember when it was. Probably I was around 15 or 16. I asked myself why I liked a brand. It's like you spend your whole life, and I think this happens. It doesn't matter the age; it can happen anytime. I don't even think my parents think of things this way. Still, it's like, why do I like a brand? Not just I like this brand. You get to think about like how the typography is designed, how they're kind of portraying thing to maybe a certain demographic or your certain region of the country. And it's really interesting to like kind of break things down that way. And you get to think of things as more than just surface level, right? And just the final package. Then I think you get to learn a lot as an artist. I think, for instance, like Nike, I think so many of us have learned so much just from watching the way that Nike does things.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many brands that, I just see like, execute the littlest things and just, so much. I mean, to even hear like that, you've noticed the branding I put in is awesome because on Twitter, it's not like there's like really like an archived scroll like Instagram or whatever. Like, so like subconsciously knowing that I have built this visual brand is shows the power of branding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Now, I think it's really important. I think, like you said, every artist should spend a little bit of time. It's like, what's the rush? Instead of just putting that piece out, think about the rollout of that. Think about the package that you're presenting, because I think that, like you said, we see that that just leads to so much more success. And of course, you can have just that most amazing piece of art that instantly people connect with, but don't rely on just that. Like set yourself apart, give yourself that little bit of head start, and like really craft that. And I think that those are the artists we see do so well.
Yes, 100%. I think, if it's a product or if it's a piece of art, like how beautiful it is what, really like sparks the interest. But what really like pulls the trigger is if you like really resonate with like the whole like story, the whole visual aspect, and branding's huge on that.
Yeah, I think you probably gained a couple of collectors when they saw you out in Lisbon with a hoop, and it was just so cool watching and the picture tells you so many different stories, right? Your imagination starts to kick in. I see this picture of all these tourists and all of these like locals alike, just like looking like what's going on there, and I think that kind of it can be that simple as a camera phone shot, and that creates like a whole narrative in collectors' minds. So I love seeing that, and just seeing it out in the wild like lets you know that this artist is out there continuing to build.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, man. Yeah, that was a real treat getting some people be able to like watch what I do IRL in Lisbon and kind of really because I'm sure some people are like all he does is throw a basketball hoop in the air, but it's like, well, yeah, but it's also, it's like a glitch in the matrix a little bit, putting it social interaction. It's an installation that I capture with a camera. And also another great thing that really just shows people what you do is process videos, so to be able to see or to do that in real life and even just rely on all these awesome artists next to me actually shoot all the process videos for me. I was like, this rules, dude. So once again, power community, like just linking with the coolest people.
Yeah, I think that other mediums have it a little easier when it comes to process videos. We're behind the camera, so unless we're doing like some Discovery Channel, like leave the camera a couple feet ahead kind of thing, and
Yes.
it's pretty hard to get that content. So it is nice to have just some other documentation. I agree that seeing that process just unlocks certain things. It's like, oh, this is really happening.
Yes, absolutely. So I completely agree with you. And, sometimes to the point where it's like, oh man, like I can't get it filmed. Like it's like limiting my art almost. Like I got to go out and just make it. But 100%, like process videos are awesome. I love it. I love watching artists process as equally as much as I love the final piece.
We're talking about some skill sets that we love to see in artists, and that we see so many artists that we admire utilize. But I'm curious on what are your 5 favorite artists? And this doesn't have to be on Solana or Ethereum. This can just be artists in general, but across the board, just pick and choose. And I'd love to know why for each of them, because I think it's so cool to hear an artist's perspective of why exactly they enjoy an artwork.
Yeah. So I guess I love Roger Deakins, his cinematography. I remember when I was younger and I saw the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. I was freaking blown away at like what a camera can do essentially. And really like I've seen westerns like my whole life. Like I love the genre, but I was just like, holy shit! Like how did he make clouds and grass and something I've seen a million times, so unique and beautiful. So I'm a huge Roger Deakins fan, and I listen to his podcast a lot, and he said, if you really want to understand how light works, go fishing. Just sit on the lake and watch the shadows and the light move. And I'm like, oh God, here I am with like trying to do studio lights and all this stuff. I'm just like, oh, just go fishing. Thanks, man. That's an awesome tip. So Deacons is one of my biggest ones. I love Virgil Abloh. Rest in peace. Fashion is massive to me, especially like his approach. Like I felt like his realness to me was, I just felt like it was just such a mirror of what he wanted to do, and I loved it, every second of it. Love Virgil so much. Brian Eno is a big one. I love how much he does different stuff, from ambient to just even leveraging technology. Like Brian Eno is awesome. Let's see who else. Storm Thorgerson, who's probably most famous for doing the album cover for like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, and a bunch of these rock albums. He he's very influential on my work. He's always like, yeah, I couldn't paint, but I could take a picture of something where it like didn't belong, or make a picture look good, and these surreal places. And I resonated with that at a pretty early age, which is probably subconsciously the inspiration on my hoop stuff of placing an object where it doesn't really belong. So let me think, a fifth one. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with like freaking who should I go for my fifth one? Oh my God,
It's
so much
tough.
is going through my head. Yeah, man.
It was easy until you get to the final one. Then you're like, oh no.
Yeah, it really is. I guess I'll go with my friend Justin Hager, who's in New York City, and seeing him, you know, evolve and sketch and make fashion, make uh, logos, and just make everything look cool and unique, and so him. Like I guess like I really watched him from afar and got to, obviously he's a personal friend, but like see him like essentially create like this narrative, and I see his work. I'm like, oh, that's Justin to the core, and it's so awesome. So yeah.
That's amazing, man. I just love to hear like because you get to learn so much about an artist on what they consume and what they enjoy consuming, right? I think it all kind of crafts this who an artist is. So I thank you for sharing that, man. I know it's
Yeah.
tough to. It's like when someone says pick your favorite song. It's really really difficult to do, but
Yeah.
it's an important practice, I think, as a creative to just think about why you like something. The same thing with branding. It's like I've been pushing myself to do this more, especially since entering the NFT community, is just why do I like this, and not just follow that, because especially in this kind of world, right? You can be so impulsive. Like I like it, buy it, and it's like, oh, that's not necessarily the best way. So it's like a little bit of personal due diligence, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually surprisingly a question that like doesn't come up in this space very often, of like who our influences are, strangely enough. So that was kind of cool to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a little bit of the point of these, and like we try to bring that with exchange on some of the spaces as well when it's personalized for one artist, because it's so important, right? Twitter can be so surface level, especially when there's a lot of people on stage. It's going very fast, and I think that it's important now more than ever to kind of break out into some of these longer form pieces of content, and to be able to like get a little bit deeper than that Twitter space, which don't get me wrong, I love Twitter spaces. That's where I've had so many connections made and strengthened in this space. But I've enjoyed like getting behind the curtain a little bit deeper.
Absolutely, man. It's awesome that way. Yeah, and spaces are great that way. Spaces could go either way. There could be some great ones, and there could be some terrible ones. So it's nice to jump into this one of
especially
one kind of deep dive.
especially lately, man. It
Yeah.
gets when times get tough, people start to do things for attention, and let's just say I miss the education. That's why you'll always find me, instead of in a room of 150, 200 plus people, I'm going to be in probably the room with 20 artists who are just
Yeah,
kicking it.
absolutely. Same. That's where the real conversations happen.
I'm curious on like, because I think that like a lot of people in the space, especially newer artists, look at people like yourself for advice or for how you got there. And of course, you know, with every artist, there's a varying degree of luck. And to quote our friend John, he's like, but it's not about that. It's about how you capture that luck and utilize
Mm.
it. But I'm curious on some of those skill sets that have helped you do so well in Solana, and maybe someone can translate some of that for their own journey.
Yeah, so I think, there's skills that you learn all along life in any job or in anything that can prepare you for any opportunity. You know what I mean? And obviously it sounds corny, but like hard work will definitely do that. Like this was an opportunity, so dropped everything and worked my ass off to do it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's as simple as it goes. But it's like, there's always going to be opportunities. As soon as you see like an open door, like you just got to run through it. You know what I mean? So yeah, like in terms of like skills, like we have talked a lot about 'em, but like, there's so much even outside of just art. Like if you're a really good people person, like you're gonna have such an easy time. Like I'm an introvert. Like a lot of artists in the space are. So like, unpeeling the onion layers and getting to core of some conversations or working our way up on stage on a space is tough. So if you're good at that, that's a great skill right off the bat. You know what I mean? And I just like being humble, being genuine, hardworking, unique. Try not to just copy what's trending or do what season it is. You know what I mean? Like come in and if you're an artist, like make your art, be true to yourself. That's the number one thing I can always say is like be true to yourself. Like I you know came into this space like a freaking weirdo throwing basketball hoops in the air. It was a lot weirder before I was making money, let me tell you, Goku. So like so I mean 100%, like I wouldn't even be talking to you unless I was true to myself and this was the art I wanted to make. And you know I'm sure people are like, when's he gonna not shoot basketball hoops? But until I'm done with it, I'm not done with it. So that's sticking to my guns.
I love that, man. And there's so many places that you haven't gone yet with the hoop. So why did they tell
I
you to stop?
I agree, man. We're just getting started.
When are you going to do the hoop pizza collab? You know, just visit all of the best pizza institutions, and you know, you might actually get a deal in for some free slices.
Dude, I love it. There's hoop pizza needs to happen. So that's going to number one on my to-do list very soon.
I can already see the collab, honestly. It's, you open a box and then the hoop falls down. You know, we could add some cardboard attachments to the box so
Dude,
you could have your own hoop.
I love it, man. I absolutely love it.
I'm going into product design for Douglas. Sorry,
There,
guys,
there we go.
I'm out.
It's on brand, like the pizza profile picture. It's on brand.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, I think we're almost there now, and I really appreciate you for just being here and for sharing all of this with us today. I think that it's really amazing for artists to be able to listen back to both the long form content and the short form content that gets made from this, and be able to learn a little bit of something from the people who have done it. Right? It's the beautiful thing about trial and error, and the beautiful thing about you, the listener, being open to learning. Right? It's none of us are telling truths. Right? We're telling what we've learned along the way, and
Yeah,
hopefully those things can help the next coming along.
absolutely. 100% agree. Just jump in, find an artist that you resonate with, and try to make a genuine connection.
Absolutely. I have a final question for you, and it's one that always excites me a lot. What does the future of photography on Solana look like to you?
Whoa,
It's a big
that's a
one.
great question, man. Um, Man, I just think it's like bigger and badder. That's all I can say is like if you go back and look at my work from when I started on Solana compared to like being able to reinvest some of these funds that have come in for me to just do like wild shoots that I've never like dreamed of doing, it's like that's a dream come true. So if I could really foresee like, you know, if a really awesome or even established photographer comes in and just like utilizes this space to like not no longer have to do like commercial shoots, but actually like shoots that they want to do and like completely open that up. Like, gosh, I don't know. And you know, so much of this space just like just blows my mind. Like I could be talking in a space to the next Virgil Abloh for all I know, you know what I mean? We get to do this together. It's like a lovely thing. So yeah, I think like, you know, if a photographer comes in and if they're just starting or if they're established and they utilize these tools, this community and this tech, like they could create their dream art, you know what I mean? So I can't wait to see that. The world needs that. The world doesn't need any more you know, Nike ads as dope as they are. Like I want some fine art, you know, I want people to be really, really you know, stimulated and supported and this creativity just boost and don't think you just have to make art to sell someone else's product.
Yeah, when are they going to start giving us hundreds of thousands of dollars for the art instead of an ad campaign? You know, it's
Dude,
it's bound
hopefully
to happen.
soon. What always trips me out, bro, is like is how artists have to write about their pieces, but we never ask anybody who writes to make art about their writing. You know what I mean? So it's like, but yeah, man, 100%. Why? When's that gonna happen?
You know, I think that's one of the things that I think it's going to take for photography and the entire space to mature is kind of like what you said. We're going to have writers. We're going to have art critics. And like, as much as we don't like these things, they're really
Yeah,
kind of crucial for
absolutely.
getting art to normal people. Like, how likely are you going to go to see a movie in the theaters that gets 1% on Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah,
Probably not so likely, right?
yeah,
And again, I there's parts of me that heavily agree with that, parts of me that don't. I think that there needs to be a nice middle ground, and you know, it starts with education, right? It's like
yes,
now that the space is maturing, people are starting to learn about what art is, what this specific medium is, how the blockchain integrates with that. So I think the next 5-10 years look really interesting with like these different things that we're used to from the real life coming into this and kind of becoming more one instead of separate things.
yes. I 100% agree with that. As soon as you know more, you know, it's got to be a little easier to get into. But like, it's you know, the people who adapted it in the beginning, you know, really came from like a video game world essentially. You know what I mean? So more real art people are coming over, and that's a beautiful thing. Which is you know to take this stuff a little more seriously, and it's you know it's amazing. But at the same time, like it's super fun. So, but yeah, man, 100% agree with all you're saying.
Yeah, I think we get to see some people, like you said, who knows, the next Virgil, the next greats are in these Twitter spaces next to us. And it's something that I've always thought about. It's like, it's the same way. It's like in New York, I think we're both pretty lucky to be kind of connected to these creative communities. You know, it's you're not going to be rude to someone on the street in New York because you never know. They could be the person who's going to be interviewing you next. They could be your next collector. They could
Yeah.
be the boss of the marketing agency. You never know, right? And I think just like treating everyone the same is just very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that should just be at the end of the day, just treat everybody with kindness. You know what I mean? And I feel like doors will open for you.
I feel like you're a guy who likes to hold the door for people. You know, like where
Thanks,
it's
man.
offered, like you go. No, you go.
I do. There's no question about that.
Oh, I really appreciate this, and we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. I could keep
Cool.
asking questions, but I feel like we got a lot of good stuff here.
Awesome.
Um, really appreciate you.